Thank you, DLD, for having us. I'm Mike Lazerow, the CEO and founder of Buddy Media. Psyched to have Linda Abraham here, who founded comScore. Like, it's amazing. I mean, comScore business has been around forever. Big round of applause for Linda. One of the few companies, that's really a part of the fabric of, our industry. And thank you all for showing up. I saw many of you just a few hours ago, and the fact that you look like you look is amazing. And I really appreciate you being here. It's fitting that we're talking about Facebook and social media, because pretty much the first thing that all of us do, even if you don't admit it, is check Facebook in the morning. Unless, I guess, you're Andrew Keen, who wants us to live in a hole alone as philosophers. I thought that was an interesting talk yesterday. Where it breaks down is the fact that Facebook makes our life so much better. Being connected to people who we still like but fell out of connection with, at least for me, has made my life better. And I think the reason why is we like to belong. We like to feel like we're loved. We like to feel like we're beloved. We like to feel like we're part of a community. It's why we're at DLD. So the benefits of social media, I think, far outweigh the potential downside. So unless we all want to live in a hole independently, bringing together the world's population on a platform isn't a bad thing. But with that, I'm going to go into kind of really how social media affects consumer behavior. I'm going to talk about some ideas and some campaigns, and then we're going to dive into some numbers. We have some exclusive data for DLD that we're releasing today. And by we, I mean Buddy Media and comScore. And by we, I really mean more comScore, and I'm happy to be here next to her. And I think that if you look at social, it's really, it's 1 out of every 5 minutes is spent on social media. But really, every second we're online, we're connected to our friends graph. If you're not connected to your friends now, it's like there's no air in the room. At least a lot of people, unlike that guy Andrew Keen from yesterday. And so if you look at the amount of time we spend in social networks, it's huge. If you look at content and the content that's enabled by social networks, you look at email being replaced by social networks, I think we could all agree that this thing's going to be big. And really, when we're talking about social networking, we're talking about Facebook. Facebook, the platform that's a number 3 site. A huge amount of the time spent online is spent on Facebook. 3 and 4 minutes that's spent in social media is spent on Facebook.com, and that doesn't include all the open graph objects, all of the Facebook hooks across the web, log in with Facebook. So Facebook is really what we're talking about with social media, and then we layer kind of others on top, and it's why I'm going to focus specifically today on Facebook, even though social media is a lot more. So we looked at how did social media affect buying and purchasing over the holiday season. And I'm going to talk about a few campaigns, and we're going to get into the numbers. And so when you look at what companies are doing and how they're trying to affect consumer behavior, the difference is that instead of buying holes on websites and trying just to fill holes with creative, we're now engaging consumers. Content management systems, ad networks, ad tech has really revolved around content in the past. Now they revolve around people. And it's about not what you throw out there, but how consumers catch and run with the content. So one of the ideas was Propel. They basically said, something, we're just going to ask consumers for pictures. And whoever wins gets $1,000. The reward isn't a lot of money, but the fact people could participate drove tens of thousands of people to upload photos. So Lexus, how many people buy cars with bows on them every holiday season? None. Amazing. Lexus said, instead of just doing the normal advertising, we're going to raise money for our causes. Connect with us. Every time you connect, we'll donate $1. Okay, 100,000 people, more than 100,000. They donated 100,000. They had hundreds of thousands of people participating. If they did that on their website, they're lucky to get 1,000 people to even look at it, let alone connect and join this cause. Walmart reorganizes their holiday shopping around people. not only what is in your friend's interest graph, but actually actions that your friends have opted in to share through Walmart. So when you show up, you actually are seeing your friends. I was going to make a comment about this isn't a Walmart crowd, given we're in Europe, but the idea of showing up and not having to think about what that gift is huge. Okay? Those dudes of us in the room, we don't know what to buy anyone. Starting with their wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, being able to show up at Walmart and being told what to buy and where to get it online, huge. Now, Best Buy this year replaced the Sunday circulars with very targeted online promotions. Black Friday for them was all about in-store and online. And a lot of the data that Linda's about to share about this really shows the importance of social and online to drive this. So no further ado is Linda from comScore. She's going to go through the data of how all this activity affects purchasing.
Thanks, Mike, and again, thanks everybody for being here so early. I'm going to kind of pick it up from where Mike left off in terms of why social matters. A lot of people want to understand, well, I've got 2 million fans or 3 million fans for my brand, and I've been successful at doing that. Sort of now what? Now what do I do? And I can't tell you the number of pretty significantly big brands that have kind of asked that question. So one thing that's really important to understand is kind of where on social and on Facebook in particular people are spending their time, because again, all of this is really very measurable and quantifiable, and it's much more complicated than the question of how do I get fans and then look at my ROI. So basically on the news feed, people are spending the majority of the time on Facebook on that news feed, and so all of those things like sponsored stories that people are doing, are marketplace ads. They are often being seen, and when they're being seen by someone who has raised their hand to really indicate that they care about your brand, that's a pretty compelling thing. And one of the things that the internet has brought to life more so than really any other form of media in the history of media is the opportunity for people to raise their hands and say, I'm interested in this topic, I'm interested in this brand, I'm interested in this company, I would like to engage with you on an ongoing basis. You could argue that search was really the first thing to do that, but social media has really taken that to a completely new level in terms of being able to engage on an ongoing basis with people. And so the importance of understanding the components and how much time people are spending doing that is the first step in really understanding how to engage with it and really make it work for your brand. So I really want to talk about the dynamics of social and what it means in terms of understanding each of these components. And by that I mean, you've got this notion of friends, and then those friends, of fans, and then those fans have friends. But what a lot of brands don't realize going into this is that the dynamics of both of those are really very, very important. So it's not just what your fans do, but really understanding what their friends do is an opportunity that can really have a big impact on how social works for you as well. So you've got, Michael, for example, puts together these terrifically creative programs and really interesting messages, and they are really embraced in a very big way. And people will pass them on and make them work virally in cases where the offers are really good. So some of the examples that he showed you earlier, you asked the question, well, what happened with that Walmart promotion? Did it work? Why did it matter? And the answer is yes. But the first step is in really understanding who these people are. Who are your fans? And what is interesting for a lot of brands to understand is that the people that you have historically always thought about as your franchise that you're going out to build a business around are often very different from the people that sort of seek you out on social. And so that has an impact on your messaging strategy. It has an impact on what you'd want to say to these people. It has an impact on where you'd want to say it. And understanding that is really important. So Starbucks is a good example of that. Here's just one very simple example on one dimension. But if you look at the kind of fundamental Starbucks franchise by age, which is in the lower blue bar, and then contrast that to what their fan base looks like, you'll quickly notice that the fan base has a younger skew as compared to the franchise that they're going out and talking with normally. And so this is just one example on one dimension, but all of this can be measured not just by simple demographics, but by really understanding the interests of your fan base. We're all here because we have some area of expertise, but we're also interested in lots and lots of other things like arts and culture and maybe politics or whatever it might be. And your fan base is the same way. So understanding that and measuring it and communicating with these folks in a way that is going to make them want to continue to engage with your brand is really a huge opportunity. I mentioned earlier that a lot of brands ask the question, well, I've got these fans. Okay, how do I measure my social ROI? And what some of the best brands are doing is they're really understanding the kind of intervening steps that really take that brand, that fan base, and turn it into a positive ROI. And there are really three major kind of considerations there. One is the fundamental core message that you're communicating. What some people may not realize is that when you put an ad out on Facebook to your fans, you push an ad out, not everyone sees that ad. There are algorithms and things that decide which ads are going to be shown to which fans. And so the notion of a cut-through rate, that's how we've kind of coined it, is really important, understanding who it is among your fan base that's actually seeing an ad. And then secondly, understanding who it is that's engaging with that ad, because better ads, obviously, or better offers, better topics, better pieces of information about your brand are going to be kind of engaged with more. And then to what extent, thirdly, are those messages being pushed out to friends of fans, because that's where the notion of earned media comes in, which is that media that you're essentially paying for. You're not paying for, but your fans are essentially sending around to their fans and their friends, and basically it's having a higher impact. So Michael shared with you an example of Walmart, and this is, they did some really interesting things during the holiday season that were really terrific and really had a very interesting impact. So what you see in the tall blue bar, the 275 million impressions there, was really what was the paid component of the advertising that Walmart did. But what you see is that the earned component, in other words, what people spread around virally because it was such a compelling offer, was about a third of what they got in terms of paid impressions. So the impact of this can really be very, very significant. And if people like what you're saying, if they're interested in it, if they're compelled to pass it around, it can really make a big difference. So in terms of lift, if you look at how the holiday season compared for some of the other major retailers, we're looking at Best Buy, Amazon, et cetera, we're noticing that there's a very consistent lift around what some of those brands are doing socially and what the measured impact was on an earned or viral basis. So the big lesson here is really understanding each of the components of paid media and earned media, understanding how they work together, and measuring them both in terms of ROI. The other thing to keep in mind is that what people don't realize is that when they build up a fan base, in some cases, the friends of those fans exhibit behaviors that are very similar to what the fans are doing. So in this particular case, we're looking at site visitation, and we're noticing that for each of these franchises, many of the friends of fans are going to the website more often than the typical internet visitor. So it's not just your fans that really like you, but in many cases, there's a whole birds of a feather notion, and those friends can often have very important lifetime value for you that you really need to know about. So in retail, as an example, but there are lots of other examples here, retail is really delivering on this promise, and never have we seen that more than during the most recent holiday season. We saw tremendous lift. We saw a lot of ads, a lot of offers that were being given only to fans or exclusively to fans, and then they were passing them around. So in some ways, they were making them work harder than your typical ad impression. And so the lessons here are really to understand the components, that social is a wonderful new world. It's absolutely changing the way consumers behave and interact with brands, but understanding the components, measuring those components, and really building kind of an ongoing optimization kind of feedback loop is really critical for growth, and it's all very possible. The technology is there. So thanks very much.
Linda and Mike.